And above all, send the bees love. Every little thing wants to be loved. Let's go.
Well, that's a 2008 movie, The Secret Life of Bees, based on the bestseller by Sue Monk Kidd. But today, it's the root of some controversy because of this headline. A New York Post article about a suicide-related school assignment. And parents of York Prep are complaining that it was, quote, outrageous. The homework? To write a first-person letter from the perspective of May, the main character in The Secret Life of Bees, who actually takes her own life. Now, before we get to the headmaster, quickly, I want to get first impressions from our panel. What's your thought about this?
I think it's a bad idea, an awful suggestion.
Drew?
I think it's outrageous that there's outrage on it. I think it's no problem and an opportunity to talk about mental health.
Christy?
That's funny because I was going to agree with Dr. Drew. I see that there's an issue, but I also think, you know, this could open the door for somebody who's on the ledge there and maybe reel them back in.
Interesting. I take a bit of a different perspective. I'll throw that in. I want everyone to hear the letter, okay? This is May's suicide note from page 210 from the book, okay? Dear August and June, I'm sorry to leave you like this. I hate you being sad, but think how happy I'll be with April, Mama, Papa, and Big Mama. Picture us up there together, and that will help some. I'm tired of carrying around the weight of the world. I'm just going to lay it down now. It's my time to die, and it's your time to live. Don't mess it up. Love, May. Joining us from New York, York Prep Headmaster Ronnie Stewart. So, Ronnie, let me ask you, why not just discuss the letter? Why have the students actually write their own?
So this is one assignment in discussion of this book, and suicide occurs in The Secret Life of Bees, and the assignment is to write the suicide letter from the point of view of May. Why did she commit suicide? To use her cadence, her speech, her language, and to try and understand why she did what she did. You can't avoid the suicide, it's in the book. The teacher was very careful to say to the class, you write this from the perspective of May. And indeed, in the class afterwards, she said, remember, you're writing this from the perspective of May. So, I mean, if you avoid these issues, if you couldn't read Catcher in the Rye, after all, Holden Caulfield discusses suicide, Hamlet, he discusses suicide, to be or not to be, we tell teachers, we have a school psychologist on staff permanently, full-time, and a school counselor, we tell teachers to look for children who have obviously, who give us concerns,
well,
but none of the students...
Ronnie, let me ask you there then. Did you take these letters and show them to the school psychologist just in case? Maybe there was something real there, you know, not just a school assignment, but a child that, I don't know, maybe really was thinking about it.
No, it's a good point what the teacher did, and the teacher has been trained. The teacher looked at the letters. If any of the letters had shown any worrying signs, the teacher would have shown it to the psychologist. Every letter was written through the perspective of May. No one complained. The headline is a little bit confusing. No one complained to the administration. I got letters who said this helped.
Ronnie, what about the students? Were there any students that had a problem doing it?
None whatsoever, because they understood they were reading this and they were writing this letter through the eyes of May. Do you want to discuss a real book which has suicide issues, or should we just give pablum, in which case we can limit the number of books and we'll avoid issues? Right. I teach ethics to the seniors. We talk about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I mean, are we not supposed to talk about these things? I give an ethics course for a year. I think it's important that we discuss them. I think it's important that we teach teachers of the dangers of suicide, and we teach teachers to look out for warning signs, and we teach parents. But should we discuss them? Of course we should discuss them.
Ronnie, do you believe that you maybe should have told the parents that this was going to be a lesson? You know, when my child has something that's going on in their life, I get an email, hey, you know, this happened in class today, this is going to happen. Why not tell them now or ahead of time instead of having to try to fix this now that people are outraged by it if it's so simple?
Well, let's get to that in a second, because I think Dr. Drew is actually siding with what you did. Ryan, you think this could unleash some suppression and be a bad thing, but Drew, you actually like what the headmaster's doing.
Absolutely. I mean, certainly to avoid some of this consternation, he may send an email in the future, but he has absolutely no obligation to do so. This is absurd that the headmaster has to come in here and defend a valid and excellent intellectual exercise. We are moving one step further to the bonfire of the vanities, guys. This is ridiculous. What do the parents do next? Tell us we can't read books about suicide, can't talk about these things? I would say one potential corollary here is to perhaps open up the discussion about mental health, make sure there are kids that aren't feeling suicidal out there, give them an opportunity to go for a referral, and then proceed with the intellectual exercise. It's an intellectual exercise. Let them do it.
Here's what bothered me is that we were looking at the list of books that have been banned or challenged, you know, classics and recent. The Kite Runner, The Hunger Games, Brave New World, To Kill a Mockingbird. I mean, these are books that talk about religion, race, you know, tough language. There's talk of nudity, but I remember getting a permission slip in the 7th grade to read Catcher in the Rye. And to this day, I love talking about what that book meant, including To Kill a Mockingbird and the issue of race. So, Headmaster, let me ask you, you know, does it hurt our kids when we don't introduce books like this early on and have these discussions early on?
Well, let me address Ryan's question, which is I think we should deal with these questions. Every book raises issues. You can't just send a constant stream. And what happens if someone has said, no, you can't discuss suicide? I think these are separate issues. We have a school psychologist who counsels the staff with a school counselor who looks for signs of depression. And then we have literature. And literature discusses issues. And I agree, you can't discuss, every book has issues. So I think we should discuss them. Suicide occurs in The Secret Life of Bees. We can't ignore it. And we should encourage discussion. Now, if someone needs to see a counselor, that's a separate thing. A teacher should be on the lookout for signs of depression or signs of isolation and refer them to a school psychologist. But this is a literature class where they're discussing what someone did.
Is he changing your mind?
No. Not at all. I'm a huge fan of Dr. Drew, but I disagree with him as well. I believe that saying that we want to open up the discussion by having someone write a suicide note is not the way to open up that discussion. It may be something that you talk about in class, or is anybody in here feeling sad, or is anybody here having a rough day? Like I say, good, bad, and ugly for my kid's day. It could be anything from bullying, which leads to something else, which leads to something else, but not a suicide note. I don't agree, but I still
Ryan,
love you, Dr.
that's
Drew.
something. That's something for the psychologist to say. That's
but
not
that can
for
also
an
be a
English
psychologist that could be wrong as well. You keep saying, Ronnie, I got a psychologist on my staff. That doesn't mean they always get it right.
But here's where the argument, here's where the rubber hits the road. The implication is that by writing a suicide note, we're increasing the risk of suicide, and that's false. That's scientifically false. That somehow by discussing and expressing suicidal feelings, that somehow evokes suicidality. Wrong. That's simply no evidence of that.
I love this discussion. All right, now we want other folks to be the judge.
You be the judge.
Okay, we want you to weigh in.
Yes, is suicide a proper topic for a school assignment? Let us know, Facebook.com/RaisingAmericaHLN. We're going to bring you our viewer verdict later.
All right, so your kid gets an assignment from school after reading an acclaimed book. Write a suicide note in the voice of the main character who kills herself. Is that too much too soon for teens, or a creative way to teach tough topics? We asked you to be the judge, and the verdict? Hung jury. Here's what some of you had to say. Andre Fick said his 21-year-old son committed suicide 3 years ago, and it's extremely important to build awareness on the subject. He wrote, it will help them understand that nothing is too big that can't be dealt with the right way. Ryan?
I don't agree with that. I lost my best friend of 20 years who left behind 3 boys and a wife to suicide. I talk to this man every day, and he made a permanent solution to a temporary problem. I think that by opening up that door, you have a kid who may not even be thinking about their depression, who said all of a sudden after writing this letter to themselves or to their loved ones, I am sad. How would I kill myself? I don't think it's a good idea.
Robert Saunders said, hell no. He says he should be the one to broach serious topics with his kids, not some influential teacher or a kid who might have a bad attitude. Drew?
I don't know how much censoring we have to do of our teachers. Yeah, parents should be very actively involved with schools. I mean, that's a nationwide problem. We need to get involved with the education of our kids. But to begin to censor what the teachers are doing. And Ryan, be careful. We're discussing suicide here in this program. Maybe we're going to make somebody want to commit suicide. Shouldn't talk about it.
Well, and that's the thing, with Dr. Drew, and I see both sides completely, but it does make me wonder, how many times have we sat at this desk after talking about a horrific thing and said, why weren't we talking about it? Why weren't we having the conversation? Why wait until afterwards? I understand what Dr. Drew's saying. And I understand what you're saying, too. You can't be responsible for what is in every kid's head.